This is Not Another Church Podcast with your host, Pastor Tom. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Kind of the way that we've been walking through a child's life. We started out with the baby years and that fear that someone was stupid enough to let me take this child home. From that, we went to the toddler years where they will put everything in their mouth and they will completely destroy your home. And I don't know why we call it baby proofing. It's really toddler proofing because babies don't do anything. They just lay there and poop and coo, scream. And so you've got the baby years, the toddler years. We talked about the golden years, as Donna called it, which are the childhood years when there's wonder and awe. And then we moved from that to I guess we go from golden to black.
The dark ages.
The dark ages. And so you put your child in a box at about age 12 and you take them out after graduation, and that's where we find ourselves today. The last of the parenting series, we are in the post-high school years. And so we're calling it post-high school because in some cases, at the end of high school, some kids go to the military, some go. It's not just college years.
Yeah, I mean, you can go. So you work a trade. You can start. You may go straight to full-time working, and you're doing your own thing. You might kind of be that.
Flounder around among all of them.
Yeah,
you can
live in your parents' basement.
Yeah.
It's a very subjective time in the life of both kids and parents.
Let's call it an adventure time.
Adventure time.
No.
The quest. Okay. We'll call this the quest.
Okay, so my guests today are Donna Huff, our children's minister. But Donna, you have a child that's stepped into this arena.
Oh yes.
Your oldest is now in this area. We have our youth pastor, Matt Aldridge, who has lived this recently.
Yeah.
And our special guest today is Emily Harrison, who is my oldest daughter, and she is living the dream now.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Aren't you like 35, 36?
Something. I'm just
yeah.
On some
Just
that really sums it all up because it's like, yeah, some days I am, and some days I'm like 14 and have no idea what I'm doing. Like, and that's all, we can end it now because that's ultimately the whole realization of all of this. It's like there's some days I'm 40 and there's some days where I'm like 14 and have no idea what to do.
So, but okay, quick question for those who are listening. Do you feel it's inappropriate if I ask you how old you are so they can know where your perspectives are coming from?
Sure, I don't care.
Go ahead.
I turned 24 this past August.
And Emily?
And I turned 23 like 10 minutes ago, like 2 weeks ago.
Okay. All right.
So I'm 50, and I still sometimes feel like I'm 14. So I'm not sure that feeling ever goes away. I've literally recently been in a room and thought, somebody needs an adult in here.
Well, that's good. It never goes away.
And can I just say, in our adult years, that sometimes you feel like you're 65.
Yes.
And sometimes you still feel like you're 14. So.
Well, usually you feel like you're 65 the day after you acted like you were 14.
Yeah, that's good.
You go to get out of the bed and you're like, where did that come from?
Why am I aching from just sleeping that way? I had that recently. Yes.
So we're just gonna let's start. Let's do this the same way that we've done all of them. I've kind of had the same outline. Where first we'll go through the good, the bad, and the ugly. So the good is there's full-on independence here. This, in theory, your child here
sort of
should be able to take care of themselves. They can buy their own car. They've got their own insurance. Those sorts of things. At the very least, they're moving in that direction.
Yeah.
And so and I will say, this is one of my favorite things about this time. I need $5. I need $10. Hey, the teacher said that I have to have $20. Can you sign this piece of paper? And I need $10. I'm going to the thing that happens every day from first grade all the way to the
special snack day.
They're selling popsicles.
Yeah.
We got to hey, Mom, can you make some sausage balls? I need them in the morning.
Yes.
I was that kid. I was so that kid.
I have to have a mock-up of the full universe by my 8 o'clock class in the morning.
Yeah. Like,
and then tomorrow's Cowboy Day. You got to have it.
Yeah, but now theoretically, because you also have the kids who go to college, so their still, they're the ones with the debit card now calling home and saying, "Can you transfer money into my account?"
Oh, we have a sibling that doesn't live at home that does that.
Yes.
Yeah. She's like, I can't make rent. I don't know what happened.
I don't know what happened.
Emily, nope, we're not going there.
I feel like that's going to open a whole can of
I
worms
think she's going to throw
that
a
we don't
sibling under the
want.
bus here.
I didn't name any names.
So we're saying on the good side, we're starting to see independence. We're starting to see financial independence. We're starting to see decision making where you can fulfill your role as more as an advisor than, okay, this is what you're going to do. So that's one of the goods. What's something else that's good that's going on there?
Well, recently, Noah, my oldest child, who is 21, he is going to be a firefighter. So he's working through all of that right now as it's happening. We got in the mail, an insurance card for him. And I know it's crazy, but that was the strangest thing as a parent of a young adult when he's like, because this is some real adulting stuff that's going on there. Yeah, when he got that, and I'm looking at his mail, and I'm like, "You have your own insurance card?" And as a mom, that was like, "Wow, I've just moved into like an old category."
So do you still keep a copy of the card with you just in case?
No. I tend more towards the parenting of it's yours, biggin.
My mom today wants a copy of her insurance card.
No, I trend towards like it's yours now, big guy. Now his paperwork and stuff, I assume he's living at home. We've given him a box to put like important paperwork in, just like we would have that sort of thing. He wanted to move out for a very long time. And then now he's realized, as all of his buddies have tried to pay bills and do all of that kind of stuff, he's kind of like, he's backed off of that a little bit. And he's like, I think I'm going to save up a little bit before I go out.
Yeah, the realization that all that stuff in the house, actually, you have to buy it. Like that there's nobody that just delivers dishwasher tabs, and you've got to go to the store and buy those.
Or just water in and of itself that comes out of your faucet. Somebody's paying for it, Yeah.
I think something like you see as the post-college, you start to see like adult things develop in your life. And so like what I mean by that is like your jobs and stuff like that, career path starts to refine itself and open up and things like that, whether it be you're going to college and you start an internship, or you start shadowing, or you start getting opportunities or stuff like that. And that kind of starts to work itself up. Or even if you're in a trade school or a trade program and you're doing a trade, and as that grows, like you start to see those kind of things start to happen. And I think that's pretty cool because again, it's one of those other steps. So you're moving from I'm a kid to I'm adult, and it's just I think that is a really cool thing of like for me starting in so when I first started student ministry, I was interning and just showing up and being 17 or 18 and goofy. And, just at some point, like I guess if you're a student ministry intern, you just carry stuff. Like I feel like that was at some point, I just carry all the stuff.
Chairs,
you're just moving. You did so much chair moving.
And I will
picking
say,
up with the pizzas and stuff like that.
As a pastor, one of the great skill sets that's really not taught in seminary is how to fold tables and chairs and stack them.
Hand trucks. But I think that part's really cool. And so going from like that 17, 18 of me starting to intern, like out of high school with a student pastor, and then after about a year or so, I did bivocational student ministry while still doing a college and still working another job. And then all those things started to transpire to where I'm at now, where it's okay, I'm doing full-time ministry. Like this is my job, and you can, for me again, it's full-time ministry, and then like for Emily, it was okay working at a restaurant, and then your jobs and stuff opening up. And I know that you talked before about the networking stuff that happens there, and it's just cool to see and develop how just over 4 or 5 year span, what's going to be in that moment, your future and your career potentially opens up, and that really starts to develop and happen in those post high school years.
Okay, so what about the college part for you? Because as you're talking about all these things, what's going back through my mind is I remember when I went to college, how much I loved it. Like I loved college. I did not mind continuing my education. I went on when they gave me the freedom that I was able to come and go from class at my own discretion. They're like, you have this many absences, do with them what you will. And
some aren't even that structured. Let me just tell you. Some are not even that structured.
And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Why didn't they let us do this in high school?
It was hey, here's all the work due by the end of the semester.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is when it's this is the day it's due by. if you have any questions, let me know. And it
Here's
turned
my office.
it
Yeah.
in by
Yeah.
this day.
The
And I was like,
business
all right,
school
shoot, yeah.
was a bunch of old men. It's like, you know what? This is what you need to do. If you show up and fail, whatever. Not on me. That's on you.
Yeah,
You
they're
pay-
still getting paid.
You pay.
They're
Yeah,
still
you've
getting
already
paid.
paid.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you need anything, come see me. Whatever. He will email you the morning of. Be like, look, I'm not feeling it. We're not having class. Like, so that freedom was good. I really enjoyed college too. So much more than high school. High school's the worst.
I would call that one of the goods for
Yeah.
these
Right.
years, right?
And
Yeah.
I was different. I went to a 4-year degree, a 4-year university at first, and I didn't adjust well. I didn't. It was, and there's a lot of other stuff going on in my life that I think contribute to me not adjusting well. But just the basis of I did not handle the responsibility well. I didn't do great in classes because I took that and said, "All right, I ain't doing nothing. I am. Well, I'm doing a lot, but I ain't doing any schoolwork." I took that freedom, and I just swung the opposite side of the pendulum, where everything for so long was structure, and you have a schedule, and then when it's just all thrown into your lap, and you got to make the sorts of it, it was like,
And
well,
if you
all
don't
right.
want to choose the 7:30 class, you don't have to choose
No.
the 7:30
Yeah,
class.
Like I can
Yeah.
wait,
You
I
know.
can I can
Wait,
go
what?
by. I can wake up at 10:30 and be done by 2. This is the greatest. This is insane.
Like I remember the film class in college that we all showed up in pajamas in all summer
Oh,
long
yeah.
because
Oh,
it was
yeah.
one of the mini semester. I don't think it was May. I think it was one of the summer semesters or mini semester in May or whatever.
Right.
We went to that. We showed up at class and everybody showed up in their pajamas. Like 90% of the class, 95 slept through the film because we'd already watched it at some point. And then had the easiest test. It was one of those gimme classes
Right.
that you were trying to fill in with. But okay, so
And then there's statistics.
yeah.
Oh my. Oh. No.
Finite mathematics is the one I remember.
Quizlet is the only way anyone passes that now. You just cheat all the way through. Sorry, Mom. But, like-
Hardcore freshman
Yeah.
semester
Okay,
1
now,
biology
Honestly,
is a
the
terrible
best
idea.
way to pass college, this is so bad, is to make friends with an athlete because they get all the answers. Why do they get all the answers?
Really?
Yeah, okay, I will.
Yes.
See,
no.
I help-
I will.
some-
I will not say what university. But the first year that I went to that,
graduate
it's not the one I graduated from. It's not the first one I graduated from.
Okay.
It's not the one I graduated from. The first 4-year university I went to, I went as a football player. Like that's why I was going to school. That's why I went there. So remember that first summer and first semester, I remember the whole rumor of football players and athletes don't do anything, that they have it all like given to you. It's like, okay, surely it's not that much.
It's true.
I sit in all those study labs. Yeah, it's true.
Really?
Boy,
I promise you, it's true. We
Wow,
had
then
this,
we're going down a
I
track.
buddied up to so much.
I'm telling you, it's
Football
true.
players.
Okay.
Yeah.
So to
So-
wrangle this back in,
Yes.
quick question for you. So we've talked about the freedom of college, starting your career, independence, insurance, and all that. How about spiritually? Where did you find yourself? Now we're on the good here with this.
I think just the opportunity to work with the high school ministry and to have other spiritual relationships with older people, and it's not like you're a kid anymore. Like I've made good friends with Susie and Beth and people that are much older than me, but it's more, not exactly on a peer level, but more of a shepherding and you're an actual person kind of role.
So you feel like a real human
I feel
being.
like a human. Yeah, and they treat me like a human, and it's like, oh, we're going to get lunch. Oh, you're going to help me with this thing. We're going to paint together. We're going to go show a house together. We're going to or with Susie, we're going to work together and give together, be it missions or whatever, together, and it's more of not equal, but it's like, again, like you're a real human.
Well, all of a sudden,
People-
as a young person, what you say and do has value. When before
Yeah.
it's not that it didn't have value, but like now it means something.
Yeah,
like
your
now
opinion matters.
You feel like you feel like your impact
Yeah.
grows.
You can
because,
be part of the conversation.
Yeah,
You're away from the kiddie table.
I was like, I'm no
Yeah.
longer at the kiddie Thanksgiving table, which
Yeah.
from again at my grandparents and more houses I've been to, it's this little pop-up blue table with the folding blue chairs.
Sure,
it's
sure.
everywhere. It's
It's all-
just
yeah.
like
with the
that.
vinyl
We
cover.
have it.
Yes,
It has it.
everybody has it.
Has
it.
That's the kiddie table everywhere.
Everywhere.
Somebody
So-
somewhere has brought that table and used a sermon illustration. I'm gonna write it down.
We should have filmed around it today.
Golly.
Well, the vinyl cover though makes sense though because you're going to make so many messes.
The ketchup is everywhere. I
Yeah, and
understand.
they're seasonal too.
But at some point, I don't get ketchup anywhere anymore.
But now you're an adult and you're expected to be held responsible.
And I guess that's a
but
side that
enough
comes with
things
it.
have happened to you to where you can develop what you feel like are well-rounded opinions and a good kind of perspective on things that are going on. Granted, there's so much more life to live and all that. But I feel like as a human, I can bring more of an opinion and more of a voice,
Do
and
you
I
feel
feel
like you
more
listen
sufficient.
more than you did when you were a teen? Like
for
you're
sure.
willing to learn more?
I would say so, and I think another part of it spiritually is like, and I think if you're a college student, post high school student individual whose parents were super active in a church, I think as you move off or just step out of that a little bit, it becomes an opportunity. Now, whether you drop that ball or you continue to carry it, for me, as my parents and dad, like, was always in a church, always served in the church, always, like, that's just always the realm we were in. As I stepped out of that, like, I got to my spiritual life, my spiritual walk then became, well, this is Matt's, not Mike's son, kind of thing. And I think even talking with Noah and stuff, like I said, of continuing where it's, you're no longer, oh, well, that's Donna's son, do this. Well, that's Noah who's doing. And I know it just even may seem like semantics, but it makes a difference. Again, it brings
It
brings value.
And I'm not asking you to leave the room when his dad and I are discussing things.
Yeah, like I now have, I'm respected. Everybody craves respect. Like, I'm respected. I'm starting to establish myself for the long run, for my family, or from what my standards will be for my family and whatnot. I'm starting to develop those, and again, like, it starts to come to realization that, like, what I stand for, what matters to me, whether it be political opinions or spiritual, standards that you've set, those have value. And I'm no longer this person's son. I'm my own person. And I think that's a cool. And it's not that I'm disrespecting my parents.
Your identity's changed.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm no longer that person's son or daughter. I'm now Matt or Emily or Noah or who I'm now. That's who I am. I'm not longer just that
multiple
person's son.
personalities.
Yeah,
Yes.
schizophrenic. I'm schizophrenic.
I mean, there's some truth there that in a way, this is the only time where you have your self-identity, because at some point in the future, it's going to shift and you're going to be
That person's mom. You're now the mom or the dad.
Yeah,
I
Emily's dad
remember
or
really well
Matt's,
the first time that somebody goes, "Oh, you're Emily's dad," and I'm like, "Wait, so
Hold on.
I only got like 6 years that I could be myself."
Yeah. And it's just one of those like that roller coaster way of life is just like you're
It is.
this person's son, and then
Especially
I'm
when you're that stay-at-home mom.
and then I'm me, and
Yeah.
then now I'm this person's dad. And it's like, wait, and then that's my granddad. Oh, you're this person's granddad. Like that thing just keeps
Yeah, it
going,
just
and
keeps
it's
on trucking along.
Yeah, and so, but I think it is cool to be able
Was
to.
it scary for y'all to start to own your walk with Christ when you begin to really say, all of a sudden, I'm Emily or I'm Matt, I'm an adult? Was there any fear involved in that?
I would say yes, because I think in developing that for me, I think there were some tough realizations, and I've done a whole at a previous church I served at. I did a whole winter retreat based off of this, and we called it Own It, because we called the weekend Own It. It was an awesome thing, and we looked all throughout Scripture in different places of, and we specifically the big sets we used the rich young ruler of a chance for this rich young person who's starting to grow and starting to develop in their culture. Jesus gives an opportunity to say, hey, follow me. And this can be your defining moment. I mean, look at the disciples who were following, whatever. Like, and then we look at look at the rest of the disciples' life. That was their identity, was in Christ and who they were in Christ and what they were doing. And the rich young ruler said, "Nah, I'm good. I like my stuff." And so we based that whole weekend over that idea. And once you come out of that, and it starts kind of as a middle schooler, as a high schooler, but really rubber meets the road when you become college freshmen and stuff. Of you're presented with new ideas, you're exposed to new different things that maybe you were sheltered, or just different walks of life and different
So
friends
did you move
have
away
around.
from home?
No, I never really moved away from home, but I really wasn't at home a lot, if that makes sense.
Oh,
Like
yeah,
that's
totally
always where
makes sense as a
I wasn't at home a lot, and but at that point it was also strange because my dad started to work night shift, and so if I wasn't home, he was asleep, and if I was out or at night or at class, whatever, if I'm at home at night, he's at work, and so but it really there was a disconnect there. And so where the fear probably came in for me was figuring out, as I'm seeing new things and as I'm being developed or things are being taught to me in terms of, like, you go to if you're a believer and you go to a public university, well, you're going to hear all this explanation of evolution and things like that. And if you're not,
And you have such big choices to make.
and there's
socially.
so many, I say liberal, I don't mean that liberally as like politically, I say liberal as in not traditionally taught ways of things and how, and like in liberal psychology, things like that, to where you're exposed to that. And sometimes it's the realization of, okay, hey, you know what? There was more in the world than just what I was taught in Sunday school. And it's just kind of this switch that flips. It's like, okay, there's more to this. And so continuing to root myself in scripture and say, okay, well, this is what the world says, and this is what Jesus says, and how does that match
And it's a
up?
battle, isn't it?
And it's tough
Yeah.
because there's some days where I listen sometimes, like, you know what? This does not sound completely stupid. And even and if that's, I don't know if that's self-doubt or whatever, but I'm listening to a professor who knows what he's doing, who has done this for you, to say, you know what? This guy's making some good points.
I had a couple of professors, yeah.
It's important to wrestle with that, I think, because then it helps you develop, okay, I was taught this, but why does that make sense for me? Like, because in college, a big part of it is figuring out logic and what you believe and who you are and all that. And that's so important on the spiritual side, too, because there's people that, like, just go to church to go to church. And so in that time, I think it's good to have that philosophy teacher or the English teacher or whoever who's, like, pushing you to think things. And you're like, this does make sense if you just think about it from this perspective. If I'm just following this line of thinking, then this is what makes sense. But then you have to dissect that from every angle for yourself. For me, as someone, I feel like I lost my train of thought. Oh my gosh.
Well, you have to be willing to be pushed because once you're pushed, you have to start to think, okay, so why do we believe this? Then you also have to be willing to learn, because that may mean you turn to a believer like your parents or someone you know that's around you that could disciple you through that, because you're not the first person to ask the questions.
Yeah.
Well, and I've heard you say this before. It's okay to know the enemy's tactics. Like, it's okay it's okay to know that. It's okay to know what
real
happens.
truth does not fear examination.
Right.
If it's real, if it's true, then we don't. In Islamic theology, they teach that inspiration trumps logic. Christianity never says that.
Right.
Christianity never asks you to turn your brain off, and so to really engage with a Christian worldview, you have to know and understand, and not belittle someone else's worldview. And so often in the church, what we do is we've told kids from, children's church all the way through, well, some people are really stupid and they think that we come from monkeys.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden this guy's sitting in a college class, and this man who is very clearly not stupid,
right,
who has a PhD and is better educated than the person who told me, well, some stupid people believe this, and is very, very eloquent. He knows his stuff. Now all of a sudden I feel like I've been tricked.
Well, and also if you get into that argument because you're just so full of gusto, whatever, guess what? That guy more than likely is going to make you look like a fool.
Yeah.
If you try to argue, and so I think
You get that socially too, though.
yeah, I think it kind of can be summed up as ignorance is a dangerous spot in a lot of different things. And so it's not like I want to go, I'm going to go study Buddhism or whatever. Even though I'm a Christian, but I'm going to study Buddhism. And I'm not like going to teeter the line. But again, it's okay to not be ignorant about the enemy's tactics and about other belief systems that are out there and how it lines up against Christianity. I mean, there's been different cultures for different religions or different practices all throughout history. It's okay to know what they are and how those line up against Christianity, because I want to know that I know that I know that I know who Jesus is, what it means, and what it says.
And not just on that sort of personal, am I saved, am I not saved, which is where we often use that phrase, but also in that, can I compare the truth of God's word against the truth of things that are around me, that sort of existential, that search that you're going through, and you start to ask those questions. And I think that that's beautiful. I actually think it's fabulous. And I don't mind when a professor pushes someone, as long as they are willing to listen to the other side of it. Because a lot of times you push away and rebel, walk out of your home, you see that 19, 20-year-old and you're like, I'm going to party, I'm going to do what I want to do, I make my own rules now, I'm God in my own life, is what it's boiling down to. But you see that happening, and you want people, I want people to explore and ask the questions, but I want that to be in an environment where both sides can be listened to.
And I think that's a big, and you may want to speak to this, I think that's a big identity marker of our generation, the borderline Gen X, Gen Z, which is kind of where we fall, is like this kind of gap in between of Gen X, Gen Z, is we don't want to blindly accept anything.
Right.
Like that's a huge marker
Well,
of
it's
it is
just
like you want to
everybody
know
wants
it.
to be accepting and know where they stand. I feel like, to both you, Dad, and Miss Donna's credit, and Mom, I dealt with that way earlier than this. From growing up in Turkey and how you and Mom always talked with us about these things, and then with Miss Donna in high school, we did that. You remember the apologetics class, and then I faced that way earlier, like middle school, and dealt with all that identity stuff way, way, way earlier. For me, it was the social aspect, where people our age, and I worked in a restaurant, and that's rough. Like, I don't know. I would be cautious working in a restaurant if you're not a strong person already in your faith, because
Charge extra for that, will you?
no.
Yeah.
Watch your
Contrary to
kids.
popular
Yeah.
opinion, dealing with the public is not easy.
The public and the kitchen staff.
Avoiding the slaps and the yes.
We're dodging hands here.
Yeah.
But I would say socially, with people at school, with people at the restaurant, with whatever, dealing with that, everybody wants to talk about everything, which I think is a good thing. But our generation talks about everything.
Well, I think that and I don't know, it's not to put it on another generation, but there was some stuff, like if you just blindly accept things and don't know it, I think later in life you can really hit a rock bottom. So, you know what, I don't know how much intellectually I know about what I
Yeah.
believe spiritually.
Can I point out something right quick? You're saying that in your generation, you're not accepting answers. You realize that you can look back through just recent American history, the 60s when we rebelled, whether it was peace, love, and war. You realize there is no generation really that has come along and just said, I accept what happened before.
Yeah.
That's why you
Yeah.
have each of these major cultural shifts, whether it's the materialism of the 80s and 90s, whether it's, whatever it is that's happened, each one of those generations are pushing back on something.
Right.
Right. Well, and it may just be this age, like this age group. But I think that, at least with our generation, I've noticed we're not embarrassed about anything, and everybody wants to talk about everything as far as politics, sex, religion, whatever. Everybody wants to know everybody's opinion. Everybody wants to talk about it. Everybody wants to get tips and hacks. And
Is this a loss of absolute truth? Is this where you're going into relativity, where everybody's opinion counts? Do you see how that...
everybody wants to discuss it.
This is
and
quickly
then-
becoming the wrong podcast.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Because
sorry.
we can have some apologetics podcasts, and we will have this same panel, but we clearly have dealt with the independent side of the good, the bad, and the ugly. So let's bridge. Since we
we're gonna
have
pull it back in.
We burned some time. Let's pull it back in. As we've looked at the good, the bad, and the ugly, let's talk a little bit about one of the things that in each age discussion we've said, as tempting as it is in this phase, don't abdicate your parenthood. And so when they're toddlers and you feel like all you're doing is yelling at them, and put that down, get that out of your mouth, stop hitting your sister, share the book, and it's easy to go, you know what, I'm just not going to deal and abdicate. And we've said, don't do that. Don't do that in the elementary school years. Don't do that in the high school years. I would say, even though parenting looks totally different at this age, don't stop parenting. They're going to need you as a sounding board, and they're going to need you to talk through things. And so I want us to talk a little bit about that. And I want to confess as a parent up front that one of the dangers here is there is a innate desire to look at your children like they're still 9 years old.
Yeah.
And so...
Yeah. Why don't I get to tell him what to do?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So stop
I'm
doing
still
that.
a parent.
Don't be stupid. And when you see them stepping off the precipice edge, because you've lived life, and you know what the other side of that decision, buying that car, and you're going to have a $300 a month payment. That's a bad idea. But what you want to say is, don't be stupid. Don't buy a new Lexus, you idiot. And so
You
let's
can get a
talk
Lexus
through
for
what
$300.
parenting looks
It
like
wasn't
in this
Audi.
phase.
Yeah, it is totally different. I think that okay, so our first one is 21. My next child is a senior. So we've got one about to step into these years, and I've watched Ben has done, sometimes my husband has done a fantastic job. There's been a couple of times with Noah, as Noah was trying to make some big decisions in his life, that Ben just really climbed in there in that decision-making process with him and was just all over it. And I was the one who's kind of hanging back going, let him learn, let him, grow up, let him do all this kind of stuff. So I think that there are times that you really kind of get involved with that decision-making and sit down and have, what we affectionately call a come to Jesus discussion.
Yes.
We've had that to happen, and I've watched Ben do that and do such a phenomenal job at it. Now, as a kid, when I was going through this age, I don't remember. I just don't remember. I knew what I wanted. I was very decisive. I know everybody's shocked with that, but I was very independent, very decisive. I knew where I was going, knew what I wanted to do. And Noah, while he's very opinionated, very decisive, smart kid, he didn't know it as quickly. And watching him do that and trying to figure out at what balance do I step in, what part do I just stand and listen, it's hard. That some of that parenting thing, I was like, who didn't warn me about these years? Because I'm thinking I'm fixing to just be like, here, go have fun. Love you. We've done it all. And it's not that easy.
We've got you to this point. We've set you up for success. Now, sally forth.
Sally forth. I love it. Yes. Yes, absolutely.
So at this point, and there has to be a balance, because I will say that my parents, and I love my parents, and I'm very close with them even now, they held the reins so tightly that I ran. Yeah. A big part of the reason why I say this jokingly, but there's some truth there. The reason why I joined the military was I was sick and tired of every aspect of my life being dictated by somebody, and I was going to go do what I wanted to do.
So you joined the military?
Yes. I know it seems completely stupid.
But,
I mean, it really is. I was tired of people telling me what to do, so I joined the Marine Corps. So there has to be a balance there where you do say, all right, they're big boy. They got to make their own decision, but you can still be. And Emily, you can speak to, I guess, if we did a good job of this or not. Hey, that's probably not the best relationship, or that's not the best friend for you. That's going to pull you down. Or, hey, let's look at a different car that doesn't.
Or rules that you keep them if they're going to stay at home for a few years while attending a local college or working locally and building up a savings, whatever it is that they're trying to do. What rules do you set forth at this age?
And I will say, you've got to guard against being a boarding house.
Yeah.
I mean, that's still your home.
Yeah. And helping them to see that, even if you moved out and had a roommate or lived with someone else or whatever, there's still some respect and kindness that you would show to anybody whom you're living with or your parents, regardless if you're living out on your own, because of protection and, just some of the basic things of life that go on and helping to see that too. Mm-hmm.
So, Emily, walk us through this phase of your life.
Which part? The parenting part?
Because ultimately this podcast is supposed to be helping the parents as they shepherd their kids through this part. So I guess I'm asking you and Matt to jump in and tell us the good, the bad, and the ugly now from that child's perspective, if you will, that young adult looking back at, so what.
Oh, so I get to critique you here.
We're gonna mute Pastor Tom's mic and let you answer.
A list here. Yeah. I think it's been really different since I have graduated and gotten a job versus in college. The last year of college for me was rough because I took way too many classes and was working too much, and so that phase of my life is different than this phase. I think like anything, now that I'm like a more grown person, I can look back and be like, oh, that was stupid that I did. I understand why mom flipped out on me, or whatever. But in the moment, it's like, I'm trying to be a grown up. Like,
leave me alone, right?
Let me, be stupid. But, and we joke about, several of the siblings being like, "Well, you're just letting me date a loser," like, and that's why
Did you ever exclaim that out loud? I just want to know.
We actually
At their house,
Yes.
everybody's always exclaiming everything out loud.
Everything is exclaimed on a regular basis. We joke we've got to be part Italian because it's just everything's up here all the time. You know, it's like, I love you so much. But
Yes, our neighbors
most
definitely.
In the most aggressive way ever.
what is your problem? But for me, we in that line, we have a running joke now that if you tell mom and dad about who you're dating, then it's going to fail because they're going to judge you or whatever. And I ran an experiment lately. Like, you know,
Dun, dun, dun.
you know, you date someone for several months with it, keeping it a secret and all this stuff. It lasts for several months, whatever. That obviously it was a terrible mistake because you didn't have any other opinion but yourself. And that's always a bad plan.
But it seemed right at the moment.
It seems right in the moment.
Yes.
Everybody's emotional, and he's so cute, you know, whatever. And then, you know, you date someone and you go all in and tell mom every detail, and then, like, you know, 2 weeks later, it's over, and everyone's
Dad's
like,
run a background check on him. And
exactly. It's like, oh, well.
okay, so let's get specific. Where do you?
So true.
Yeah, I wasn't joking. Yeah.
It's just like to a T. Exactly what happened.
So,
Crap, he's a felon. That's my bad. Like,
so real specific. Where have the reins been in your experience? And you can kind of broaden your answer, but where has it been too tight?
I think. I'm trying to think about how to broadly say this without being like specific instances. You know, sometimes. I don't know. In every instance, I was in the wrong.
Amen.
Tom said, "All right, cut. We're done." That's the only reason
today's podcast.
That's the only reason we had her here today. That's all I wanted to hear.
And that's my new ringtone.
Listen, though. Okay, so but in the moment, it'd be like, you know, and for some reason, it's always when dad's out of town and mom's in charge when everything hits the fan.
Don't throw your mom under the bus.
Oh.
No,
love her.
I know, but it's the extra pressure, I think. And it's the me thinking like, oh, well, you know, dad stays up waiting for us, so mom goes to bed at 8:30 and I'm going to come home at 1. Like, you know, come home at 2:30 in the morning and nobody cares. And then there's mom who flips out on me and for good reason because nobody needs to come home at 2:30 in the morning.
Nothing good happens after 12.
Yeah, well,
After 10.
Oh.
Nah,
you don't know my life. No.
Okay, and there was an example of tight rein.
Now, as an adult, I'm too tired to be out that late.
Yes.
Yes, real adulting is if somebody were to walk in the room and say, you know what, go to your room and think about what you've done. I'm like, I'm in.
Thank goodness.
Can I do that?
Thank you for letting me leave. Yeah. I think honestly, they have not had very tight reins for me because I am one of these people that I'm opinionated and I work hard, but I'm also a little bit of a people pleaser, especially for dad. Like I finished college early because I wanted them to think that I was capable, you know, and like
They already think you're spectacular. You didn't have anything to prove.
but
Nothing to prove.
But nobody ever thinks that. So for me, I want to, and this is, you know, we're not to get into sin tendencies, but I want to be the person who's fully capable and fully there and fully able to do the right thing and be self-sufficient. And so I think because I am that way, you know, and I also cry at the drop of a hat when someone's mad at me. So the reining in was not difficult on my end.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is you might need to tighten up a little bit, Tom. You can get her out of the house.
Apparently.
You know,
Apparently.
that's what it's
I
going
would
to take.
really
You
be
can-
impressed with you, Emily, if you could get your own home.
Listen, okay? You would be so sad. He lives at home too. This boy never gets any flack.
So she didn't run away and join the Marine Corps.
No. Look, you would be so sad if I moved out.
I would be, Emily.
At least for 5 minutes.
At least for 5 minutes. At this point, I pay for my phone, my insurance, all this stuff.
And they're very proud of you in that. Matt, do you have anything with the...
It's
Your
so-
dad let you run rampant too. so-
Yeah, my dad, because like I said, it was a point where it was just me and my dad at home. Like my mom wasn't there, and it was just me. My brother had either moved out, and sometimes my brother was there, but he's 3 years older than me, so I'm definitely not listening to what he's telling me what to do. So I stopped doing that a long time ago.
Hints of the brother relationship.
Yeah.
Yes.
If Mason, if you're listening, boom roasted. So, but my dad, it was a point where like my dad was working nights and working, 8 or 12 hour shifts at the hospital, and so. Again, when when he's at home, I'm out, I'm at school, I'm working or whatever, and then when I'm out doing, whatever, nobody's at home, and so I kind of had free range to do what I wanted to when I wanted to. And my mom was 2 hours away. My thing with her, which if she's listening, tough. Those from 2 hours away. Let me just say, and this could probably be practically
Not
applied.
a lot of parenting happening from
slang
where
day.
right?
Practically speaking, if your kid is that far away in terms of maybe they're at college or whatever, it's tough to hold the range really tight. Like that's just the distance that makes it really tough. And
Yes, Mom,
at least
I'm at home.
from the kid's standpoint, that makes it miserable because I'm not at home, and it I guess I understand why you would want it tight because emotionally. That sucks that they're not there anymore. It's tough because you don't know what they're doing. You're worrying, stuff like that. But at that point, you've got to trust God, and second, you've got to trust your parents that you've prepared them for this, that you've prepared them for what happens, and they're going to fail. They're going to come back and say, "Mom, I don't know what I'm doing. Dad, I need you, man. Like, can you just meet me? Can you come down?" Like those moments are more than likely going to happen. But it was the flip side for me. It was like my mom's 2 hours away, and the range were like super tight, and it was like you have like something about this isn't right, isn't working.
Yeah.
And so I've kind of seen, I wouldn't say the bad side, 'cause my parents were both good parents, but like when it came to this time, I really had to fail a lot because I had so much freedom. I had to do the wrong thing a lot of times to figure out, okay, this is not working. Within my job, within what I was doing student ministry wise, okay, showing at 18, 19, showing up and doing and preparing your message at 4:30 on Wednesday. Guess what? It's not going to work out really well when you start at 6. Like, let me just tell you, it doesn't work. It
never works. Never works.
That does not work. If you're at your job, if you've got a deadline and it's Friday and you start your work at Thursday at 4:30, it's going to be tough. Like, and so I had to fail and be made look. I had to be made to look stupid and dumb because that's how my pride was broken down. I had to fail a few times in terms of the real world to figure out, okay, I need a lot more structure than what I've got right now. I need a calendar. I need a.
So you wanted your
Character
parents to?
development.
Did you want your parents to help develop that during that time?
No, I wouldn't have. And I don't know if that
So
was
like
resentment
4 years ago at 20. How do you see that happening? Does it just have to play out in their job and college and whatever it is that they're doing at that time?
I think a little bit of failure is something I would want anybody to fail, but I think again, it's something a little bit of to have the realization of you don't have it all figured out, and you've got to go back to the drawing board to see what works for you, the structure you need in your life, how much structure to find how well you can operate in the world. I think each individual has to find that out because to me, at least that point, if my parent is continuing, and I said this last week, if you're continuing to shield me from every punch that's coming my way, then when I'm faced with no other choice to roll with the punches, I'm not going to be able to roll with them. Right. And so I had to get punched a few times to figure out, okay, hey, this is how life works. This is the structure that you need. And so now you can roll with the punches when things get rough.
So when you failed a college class.
Yeah, when I failed college classes.
Paid for it, like our kids have to pay their way through college. We did not have the financial means to provide a home and to provide college. I worked my way through college. I made it all the way through, paid for it.
Well, I got really lucky.
A little bit of help from my parents. So they would help with books occasionally and things like that. But the majority of it was paid for out of my job.
I got really lucky. I'll graduate with my degree next spring, and I did not do that traditionally. There were multiple breaks in between. I went to JUCO in between. It's been a process because there was so little structure.
I dropped out at one point, went back.
There was so so little structure in my life in terms of how I was going in my day to day. There's 24 hours a day, and I felt like I was getting nothing done because I wasn't doing anything.
If you don't do anything, you're really not going to accomplish.
And I felt like I just was really struggling with what to do and things like that. And so my first semester, after my second semester at JSU, and I got put on academic probation, it was like, all right, I gotta go back to the drawing board. And so I failed. I wasn't kicked out. I was put on probation. I withdrew, took a year off to figure out I took a year off to figure out what in the world am I going to do next. Yeah. And I started praying, and that's when, God really worked in my heart through ministry. And then, you know what? And it was part of probably eating a little bit of humble pie. I went to JUCO for 2 years. At 20 years old, went to JUCO, and you know what? It is what it is. It was, when I found out, I was really lucky. Via a college fund my grandparents had started and federal financial aid, I got paid to go to JUCO. Like I got money each semester, like cash to my name in junior college to go to junior college, and it was fairly easy. I got a little bit of taste of the freedom that I have, and this is what I have to get done, still within the structure of I'm still at home, I'm still comfortable. And then now, as I got into working a full-time job in the last year, have been attending a 4-year university online and getting all my stuff done, and have been doing really well. I ended up having to fail a little bit in order to set myself up for success.
So both of you paid for a lot of your schooling, right?
I did. The government did. Or I guess I got really lucky with a college fund, the PACT fund in the state that my grandparents paid into. I got really lucky to have that.
So are you glad you had to work for that?
Then no, now yes, because
How about you, Emily?
I am, yeah. They have had us buy all of our cars, and as you know, I wreck things. So I have bought multiple cars.
And phones.
And phones, all the phones.
All the phones. Yes.
Laptops. Yeah. I worked through college too much. And so I have a little bit of student debt, but not much. And so I actually appreciated it because to me, the kids at college, that's like, yeah, well, my parents say my job is to go to college. It's like, well, what are you doing all day? Like, how do you have a C right now? Like, I've appreciated the character building, it forced me to have a work ethic, because if you want to pass this class, you have to put in the hours while dead tired and while being like, okay, well, I've got to hit it because I have to be at work in an hour and go and deal with people all day and then come home and study and whatever.
So you think that was real growth for you?
It was. To me, I've worked since I was, I babysat like 3 days a week in Turkey. So like since I was like 14, I've always had a job, and I have appreciated it. One, because I'm a people person, and two, because it gives you the opportunity to learn how to manage money and how to manage your time. And it just teaches you a lot about yourself as far as from a younger age, so I grew up with the ability to kind of trial and error with money and with responsibility while I still had that guidance and while I still had, and I'm not a big spender anyway, but mom being like, you can't buy all these snacks on your way to work and still have money for gas. Yes. Because I can't pay for it.
I love snacks.
Yeah.
Snacks are the bomb.
But I like snacks. And she'll be like, eat at work, it's free. Like,
that was a scary Ann impression.
yeah.
That was scary.
So what about you, Matt? What do you think helped to grow your character in some of that?
So
what struggles?
Again, I felt like I had, and I didn't want helicopter parents, and I feel like, again, from someone who's 2 hours away telling me what I can and can't do and stuff like that. And I was a typical. I don't know if it's
ignore that.
I don't know if it's a typical.
Oh, so easily.
Yeah. You're like, sure, mom. Yeah.
I wish.
I'm at home.
Mom.
I
Yes,
wish
ma'am.
that I don't know if it's just the guy in me, or I guess just probably just the sin in me of when you tell me I can't do something. Guess what? Yeah, good luck with that.
I hope you at least lie about it. Because then you're stupid. You're like, Mom, I'm at a party, huh?
Thinking that I had it all worked out, and then seeing it played out in my life that I really essentially had nothing worked out, like that I had nothing. I didn't have a ton going for me. The things that would have had great potential in my life, I was phoning it in, stuff like that. I thought about who I was disappointing. I thought about, I'm disappointing my mom and my dad. I'm disappointing the people that I work for. I'm disappointing my grandparents whom I love and stuff like that. And so then at the time and during all that, I'm dating Jessie, and so I was disappointed. I was like, I don't want to be disappointing to her. Like it was figuring out again. I had to kind of be broken down a little bit. Like a lot of Matt had to get chipped away. A lot of Matt had to get chipped away to figure out, and now there's still days and weeks where, like, coming back from coronavirus, it was like, all right, this has been kind of fun, and it's, like, not people getting sick and dying, but like, man, sitting at home's not that bad. This is kind of a good gig, like, I would love to be doing stuff, but we're not. We can't. They say we can't, and so getting that swing there, that first 2 weeks is like, well, all right, this is what you got to do all the time again. But then you have weeks like this where, like last week where, I had to preach. We had the ladies' tea, and it's like, all right, we're just going to roll with the punches and keep doing what we're doing. Am I tired? Am I sleepy? Absolutely. But we're just going to keep rolling with it, and so stuff like that. And I know, again, I'm not complaining about full-time ministry, but like, because Thomas said it before, I'm super lucky to be able to get paid to minister to God's people, to do what God's called us, each of us do anyways. And so, but I think the principles of when it gets tough, you have to keep going. You can't quit. You can't roll over. You got to be able to roll with the punches. When you get hit, you've got to get back up. When you're tired, you still have to adult. Yeah, like all the
responsibility is a great teacher.
All the weird, crazy, out there cliches. Having to learn all of those in a tough way, again, was hard. It was difficult. Nobody enjoys that. Nobody enjoys those times. Nobody enjoys getting punched in the mouth.
In our adult women's Bible study, we still have the discussion of, like, when do you learn the most? When is God teaching you the most? And it's through discomfort and pain.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's the whole, how a diamond's refined kind of thing, heat and pressure, like that. I mean, that whole, again, cliche illustration kind of thing, figuring out what God was doing in my life while going through tough times, both, like, things were tumultuous in all areas of my life, family, all that stuff was really tough. But now seeing how the tough times can be used for me to minister to students and individuals now, that alone to me will be worth it. To know how to, and this, I have no problem saying this. My parents are divorced. My dad's parents both his parents are divorced. My mom's parents divorced, and I am bound and determined, and for lack of a better term, hell bent on saying, Jesse, I love you so much, and you may hate my guts one day, but we're not. It's not happening. It is not happening. Dadgummit, it's not happening. And I say that jokingly, but developing those standards in my life and for my family one day that are going to be these standards in our house.
Going to be tough.
It's going to be hard, and these are things that we're going to surround ourselves around and root ourselves in. Being the Word of God and family worship and family discipleship and things like that. I feel like if I'd had a lot more of that, and it's not because my parents didn't do it, but like there was just so much had happened in the last year of high school to the first year of college where my parents separated and divorced, and it's bad and it's ugly and it's terrible. I had to learn how to get rocked to my core to figure out, okay, this is who God is shaping you to be, and this is how you've got to follow that. And so doing my own thing for so long was really tough. And for me, that's so far in just 24 years, that's been the biggest space where I felt like God stretched me and grew me and refined me to now see, or at least feel, in this season or time, know what God's got for my life and try to do my best to pursue that day in and day out. And it's still tough. There's still really hard days. There's still seasons where, I just want to lay in bed, or I just want to go do this, or I just want to drive around, or I just want to go do this, but I can't. And the reality is, I look at what God's called me to do. If God wanted it different, it would be. I need to do what God's called me to do. I need to be where God's called me to be. And I need to rest in the fact that He knows what He's doing. I'm at where He says I need to be, and I need to find joy in that. And even if sometimes as that's not what I feel, that's not what my feelings are going to lie to me. Yeah. So I need to know what truth is. I need to know what that truth is so that I can say to myself, this is truth. This is truth over feelings kind of thing, and keep rolling with the punches. And then there's some times where it's like, I would not want to be anywhere else.
A lot of these things that you're talking about are true all through adulthood.
Sure. But I'm thinking, again, having to learn that, like having and as a 15-year-old and as a sophomore, man, I didn't know any of that.
Yeah,
and some people might.
Like, emotionally vulnerable. Like, you have to learn in this age, and really before this age, don't listen. Like, your feelings are irrelevant. Girl, get up, do what you need to do. It's whatever. Like, nobody cares. Suck it up and do it. Like, just do what you have to do and do the right thing and look at what is real, because in relationships or with a job or whatever, you're going to feel different ways, and you're going to, depending on, when you've eaten or, whenever it is in your life, you're going to feel different ways. But at the end of the day, you have to look at what reality is and what's really going on, and you have to just pick up and do it. And we joke all the time, life is hard, but it teaches you everything. And we joke all the time, me and Matt, just like, we love trauma, makes you hilarious. Like,
I am one that will, about my mom leaving, I will be the first person to make that joke.
Matt, I've told you.
Again, hey, the comedy is my coping mechanism.
Me too.
It's
like,
my
really,
coping mechanism. That's
So
that's the thing.
all the cliches, if
and
it
be
doesn't
like,
kill you, it makes you stronger.
if it
all of
doesn't
the-
kill you, makes you hilarious.
Wow.
It's a situation by situation kind of thing. And I also, speaking of things you learn the hard way, that's one of them. You can't make that joke everywhere.
You really
Not
can't.
everywhere you go.
No,
Can't make that joke everywhere.
I will say, as a group of people, we all stick our foot in our mouths too much over here. Like,
All right, so back to parenting. This has been really hard to keep it this particular podcast on the tracks.
I blame it on Matt.
So we've got you are, even though it looks different, you have to keep parenting. And one of the things that we did say over and over and over again in each phase of a child's life, the number one thing to really think about that you have to give that child is time. And in this phase of life, it's no different. Where you can have an impact is because you're not laying down the law, you're not setting the rules. Where you can have an impact in your child's life here is time. And so making much of Jesus as you're with them and shepherding them is still a real aspect of it. So this is buttoning up, because once the kid gets past this point, it's really none of your business. So I hope that the parenting, the child rearing stuff has been helpful. We are going to start next week. Next week's podcast, we're going to begin a series to take us through Christmas that will be marriage. And so I look forward to doing that. And so go serve your King. This has been Not Another Church podcast with your host, Pastor Tom. Thanks for listening, and go serve your King.